More now on the massive campfire in Northern California.
Where nearly the entire town has been incinerated.
Ravaging Northern California. We're in that town of 27,000.
We're driving through Paradise, California. You can barely see anything but to be overtaken by flames. You can see them coming up.
It has been 24 hours since the fire exploded here in Northern California.
I don't think there's not going to be a home left in Paradise. I don't know.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Fieldcraft channel. It's Mike and Rob. We are here in Paradise, California. You can see all these burnt trees around us are from the infamous 2018 fire here in Paradise, California.
Yeah, the town still isn't the same, just like the lives of the people that were here aren't the same. We're going to tell you stories about people that were here that had to evacuate during the fires and the experiences and the lessons that we can learn from their stories.
We all know that experience is the best teacher, so let's see what they have to say.
My name is Scott McKenzie, and my job prior to the fire, well, I had already retired from the sheriff's office as the sheriff, and I was teaching. I was an instructor at Butte College. I was living here, Paradise, California, prior to the fire. You know, it wasn't our first rodeo. We were all very aware that we should take certain steps to prevent wildfire. Everywhere along here, us included, we were very fire conscious as far as maintaining the brush, the trees, but obviously this fire was so dangerous, so hot, so fast moving that none of those preparations really made a difference.
My name's April Carter.
I'm Bob Carter. So we had a lot of preparation. We had bags that were set up for 72-hour emergencies with $1,000 of cash, food, water, everything we needed to survive an emergency.
And we did do drills when we had kids. We'd practice, grabbing the stuff and then going out and meeting at a certain place. And we thought we were really prepared, but when you're in that situation, you just flee. That's all you can think about.
A fire like this was literally impossible to protect yourself against, preparation-wise.
The day of the fire, had my two grandsons, and we went to the school. As I was driving there, I could see black, and I thought, oh, we're gonna have a big storm coming. Got to the school, and principal came over the loudspeaker and said, we need to evacuate immediately. So I grabbed my grandsons and drove home, and we didn't think the whole town was on fire.
This was the third or fourth time that we've gotten an evacuation text. I'm not going to worry about packing everything we own, that we didn't really think that we would be evacuating.
And we lived close to the hospital, so the hospital, we figured they never let the hospital burn.
My name's Alan Pierce. I was the intensive care manager for Feather River Hospital in Paradise, California. It was November 8th of 2018. I was working at the hospital at 7 for all the kind of management.
My daughter-in-law, Christina, she worked at the hospital, and when she got to work, everything was going normal. It was about 7 o'clock in the morning.
Around 7:30, my wife had texted me that there was a lot of smoke in the air. So I went out and checked it out from where I was at the hospital. That's when I first knew something was going on. And within 30 minutes, there was going to be a meeting, emergency preparedness meeting. When I walked into work, it was sunny, breezy, nice day. When I went out to see the fire, that same breeze was blowing like down the canyon towards the hospital. We were already seeing ash just walking out the door. So I knew it was serious.
So at first it was code blue, and so they started collecting papers and things.
I'm telling my team I'm going to go to this meeting. It might mean evacuation. So I want gurneys, wheelchairs right by the beds. I want their charts on the beds. So they're ready to move these patients over, because if we're evacuating, we're bringing them to another hospital. At 8:09, the CFO called for evacuation.
They finally got code black. That meant everybody had to leave.
There was no question in my mind that nothing can stop that. I saw that fire and I said to myself immediately, well, this is going to be the worst fire that we've ever experienced here in Butte County, for sure. Because when you look at that fire, it wasn't just straight across from me. It was all the way down the canyon. And so you could tell by the way it's moving across the ridge that it was moving fast. And then you could feel the wind. I was out on the deck, you could feel the wind blowing in my face, coming right from that fire.
And then the air is like blowing past you, like down into the canyon. It looked like a hellscape, and that's not a exaggeration. It was like orange. Fire started making its own weather, like it was sucking air down the canyon.
The narrow roads out, the smoke and everything just came so fast.
He was doing like football fields a second, just so fast.
I think I was sort of in denial, to tell you the truth. After talking with a lot of people, I guess I'm not the only one that was in denial. It's just one of those defense mechanisms, I guess. And for whatever reason, and I don't know why, I should have been doing other things, I grabbed the hose and I started squirting down my roof. And what good did that do? I mean, it wouldn't have done any good no matter what. And I called 911, I got the fire department. Yeah. And I said, there's a fire here.
Yes, we have major flames right behind Stark Lane.
Hey, your caller? Your name?
My name is Scott McKenzie. I'm the former sheriff of Butte County.
Okay, we're getting resources mobilized into the area as fast as we can, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Walk over here and I'll show you where the house was. So right there, half of this is now filled in. The house actually came over to about right here. And this is where the house was. Wow. And I had a barn. A little further back between there and my truck, I had a barn.
So I started my evacuation. I grabbed a couple team members, out of the parking lot. We headed down the road. I think I literally said, I'm like, this isn't good. The couple people in the car with me were pretty nervous, just started creeping down the road. I spotted like a fire truck, so I'm like, oh, let's get behind the fire truck. That's got the best chance of getting through. People are probably gonna get out of their way. And that's around the time that the truck sustained the damage it did, like on the way to that part. I had to like kind of press up against the hill that was on fire, and you're looking out and watching the side mirror melt. End up getting trapped next to the fire truck, and the people in my truck decided they were gonna get out and get into the fire truck. And we're not moving now. Because every time a car runs out of gas, every time something like that happened, it would block that entire lane. And so that was what was happening. Like, all it takes is one car to go bad in a lane. CAL FIRE dozer operator, he came through and he knocked that truck out of the way. And then that opened up a path that I could see like into the forest where I could drive around and then turn around and then find a path back onto the same road I was on going the opposite direction.
So she drove out of the parking lot. It was so dark and smoky, she couldn't see. She ran head into a highway patrol. She smashed into him, the back window burst out, flame came in, burned her purse, burned her back of her arm, her sweater was on fire. She thought for sure she was gonna die in the car, but she couldn't get out of the car, so she had to use both feet to kick the door open. When she got out, the policeman was getting out of his car, and he said, "Run." And a woman was just coming onto the road. She picked them up and drove them out.
It was probably 30, 40 feet tall. The fire rolled right up over the edge of this rim right here. That whole ridge, see that whole ridge over there? Yeah. That whole ridge was on fire. Wow. I mean, it was just completely lit up. Yeah, it shot right up through there. Yeah.
So that's the wind, right? You're saying the wind came?
Yeah, the wind was blowing this way. Wow. Heavily too, I might add. Yeah. And you can see where all these burnt trees are. Mm-hmm. Well, they were burnt completely.
Mm-hmm. So tell me about your truck.
It was a 1973 Toyota Land Cruiser. I bought it brand new in 1973. It was parked right here. Now this is the side of the house. Mm-hmm. So it's parked right here. I kept every single part that I took off of it when I modified it. Yeah. The kids were raised in this thing, and I actually tried to start it. But we'd been on a trip. I didn't have time to charge it. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I don't even have time to put it in neutral and roll it out there.
Yeah.
I had to go.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if I would have it when I got back or not. And obviously I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
When it's blood, sweat, and tears, and you turn every nut and bolt yourself. I don't know if I can talk about this or not.
Take your time. Take your time.
But I knew we had to leave. I knew I had to leave. So I grabbed what I could and got into my truck with my fifth wheel attached and took off. So I'm looking in the side mirrors and I went, oh my goodness, this fire is not only catching me, it's passing me.
And then from there, I headed back up and I just went right back to the hospital. To see what it was like, just to see what's going on there. Some people were kind of ending back up there that had gotten stuck as well, because when I made that, other people were able to follow me up the road. A bunch of us headed back. It was kind of cool because we had a surgeon, an ER doc, a pediatrician. We had enough that we could like crack someone open and do surgery like outside there. And we decided to break back into the hospital and get equipment, and we staged a triage of like, green, yellow, red, and a black section, and started triaging patients. And the hospital caught on fire. The lead of whoever was doing fire and law enforcement and everything, they approached us and we decided to move to the helipad. And so our helipad at the hospital was actually off of the parking lot. It was a circular area of asphalt in the middle of a bunch of brush, a lot like this. And all of that had already burned over. So all the equipment into the middle of the circle, and we moved all the patients on the outside of the circle so we can kind of keep an eye on everyone, and just kind of sheltered there for a while, watching the hospital burn next to us, and like everything. There was just in all directions.
Because we had our grandchildren and there were explosions that you could hear.
And big chunks.
Propane tanks blowing up, pieces of ash falling down. Our grandkids were pretty freaked out. They were
scared.
They were very much afraid. So we drove off.
In a motorhome, and we didn't realize we were less than half a tank in the motorhome.
Much less.
Much less. It took us 2 hours to get down the hill.
There's only 3 streets that lead out of town, heading down the hill. And so everybody's on that street. And the kids were freaking out. We thought, oh man. But we had no idea of the magnitude of the fire at that time.
The school's on fire. The houses are on fire to the north of me. All the houses in front of me, and I was facing east, are on fire, and most of them were already burnt down. Looking across Spence Road from Ponderosa School, everything's gone, every house. So I waited there, less than 5 minutes. So a deputy sheriff came up to me. He said, Sheriff, we're gonna get you out of here. Follow me, don't stop. You're gonna run over large cables that are de-energized. You might even run over a small tree or even a telephone pole. He says, do whatever you can to get through. And I followed him down into the dip of Wagstaff, came back up, and there was the Kmart parking lot. And he stopped momentarily and he said, go find a spot in the middle of that parking lot. And that's where I planted myself for the next 5.5 to 6.5 hours. Here we are in the Kmart parking lot in Paradise. It's about 12-20 hours, and there's quite a few cars evacuated to here. There's a big fire going right straight across Clark Road. You can make it out there, and Kmart was briefly on fire, but I guess they got it out. And you can see all the cars located here to the evacuation parking area. So that's what we've got so far. Well, the plan after that was to meet with my family at my daughter's house in Chico, and ultimately we did. Well, one good thing is that we had a trailer that we had just gotten back from a trip in, and it was full. So we had some clothes in there, we had some food, we had water. We could do okay for a while. I had a lot of good things in there that I could survive with.
we just waited until they gave us an all clear to try to evacuate again. And at that point, we started loading up patients in different vehicles and started heading down Hence, which they'd reopened. I knew they were safe, so I gave my wife a call and said, I'm safe, I'm headed down the hill. When I drive down their driveway, they see me driving down, and then when I park the truck, I'd just been gone, right? They don't know anything about it. And I park the truck and only the burnt side's showing. And then I pull up and then I see them start running when they see the truck. And I was like, oh, I totally forgot. This looks like hell. And so I jumped out of the truck and I'm like, I'm okay, I'm fine. I'm fine. But my wife spider monkeyed me, and like my kids are like hugging me, and like everyone's crying, and I had a lot of guilt for making, I know it's not my fault. I know like the logic says it's not my fault, but when you have kids, you don't want them to feel unsafe or that anything is unstable. So I was getting pretty choked up that my daughters were like terrified, and my wife was, and everything, that they thought it was dead.
Our house was gone. The house that we'd purchased for our son to live in was gone. Our medical complex where I worked was gone.
That you owned and worked
Yeah,
was gone.
everything was destroyed, so we had nothing to go home to.
Here's what I learned from my bug out vehicle and the fire. Number one, everybody I know has gas containers on their vehicle, extra gas for bug out. Don't leave them on your vehicle, because when your vehicle catches fire, it even burns more.
You know, what applies to fire doesn't apply to a flood or other problems. So, you know, it's hard to give advice for this kind of emergency. There's so many things that can happen. We finally just pulled into a place that sold diesel on fumes.
Barely rolled in.
Yeah, it was on empty.
So now we never let our tanks get below half.
Yeah.
We've learned from
We
that.
make it a habit.
Don't park it right next to your house, because if your house catches fire, chances are your rig's gonna catch on fire. My wife got her car out. I had to get the truck and the fifth wheel out. I had nobody to drive the Land Cruiser if I could have gotten it started. I tried, but we'd been on about a 3-week trip and the battery had gone low. So there's another thing, you should make sure that it's got a good source of electricity to it so that you can keep a very good trickle charger on it all the time. So those are some of the things in retrospect that I think of if I want to maintain a viable escape vehicle.
We were lucky and we prepared. So between the two of those things, we were actually in a good place. From a hospital standpoint, you're still held to the standard you're going to be protecting your patients. There's no leaving that situation until your job is done. Having an off-road setup vehicle that when I'm pulling out and I can run over like small fallen trees and electrical poles and run them at speed was very nice. When I was escaping the road that I got trapped on, that was great. Things I would do different, and I've told people this, and it's not heroic sounding or anything, but find a big parking lot and sit in the middle of it. Like I said, my kids and animals and my wife had gotten everyone out safe, so she did all the saving that needed to be done for our household. The rest of it is literally replaceable.
We have no plans to go back.
It's not the town where we lived.
It's just not,
the same.
Post-fire wise, we're fine. We miss Paradise terribly, but Paradise will never be the same as we have known it. We probably will not move back to this property, but we will always keep this property belonging to us. These are just great memories that we can't give up.